Hi guys, I'm Katie May and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to share part one of a two-part series, and this is about my lived experience with early diagnosis of ADHD and autism in the 1990s. Early diagnosis is only useful when the world knows what to do with it. And if you were around or diagnosed in the 90s, you know the world had no idea what was going on. This video is about my personal lived experience, and I want to make that really clear. It's not medical advice. It's not a universal story. It's not about blaming individuals. It's not about trauma dumping. It's just about what I lived through. It's about why early diagnosis didn't protect me and how that shaped my childhood, my nervous system, my relationships, and my adult life. If you were early diagnosed and still struggled, or if you're only starting to understand things now, this video might resonate with you. So we're going to start out strong with when something was clearly wrong. I got a lot of advice from the adults, well, the older adults around me, like my mum, when getting all the wording for this bit together. So this is more their lived experience because I was so young, I don't have much memory of it. My mum started seeking help for me just before my first birthday. I didn't talk. My behaviour was pretty extreme from what I've heard, and I was constantly dysregulated. I was constantly hurting myself. I just couldn't cope, and it wasn't subtle. It was loud. My mum knew something wasn't right, not in a moral sense, but in a developmental one. Every time she tried to get help, she was met with disbelief. She was told, girls don't get ADHD. I was just difficult. I'd grow out of it. Social services were somewhere that she turned regularly, but she was told there was no real need for support. There was concern, but no real understanding. And that set the tone for kind of everything that followed. Something was clearly wrong, but nobody knew what to do with it. The other side of that is we weren't the most socially equipped family in finances and things like that. My parents were divorced. My mum had an older child. It was a young family, and they just put it down to naivety. After years of fighting, I was around 6 years old when I finally secured a diagnosis. I say my mum got that diagnosis for me. They diagnosed me with both ADHD and autism. At the time, they actually diagnosed me with Asperger's syndrome, but that no longer seems to be a used term. So now I fall under the autism umbrella. At the time, this was rare, especially for a girl. And you would think that diagnosis would have been a turning point, but all it did was label me without protecting me. I was pulled out of school one day a week to attend social skills groups. Every other child there was a boy. I was the only girl, so I didn't fit in there either. Instead of learning to feel safe and secure, yet again, I learned that I was different. I was in a space that was meant to be designed for people like me, but yet again, I learned I was the oddity. The diagnosis gave me a name, but it didn't give me understanding or safety. School was hard. I was written off a lot. School actually wasn't hard academically for me. I was academically very gifted, but socially and emotionally, it was awful. The teachers didn't know how to support me. There wasn't the language that there is now, and I was often treated like a problem, or it went the other way and there was zero expectation on me. Other kids were expected to complete their homework. I was told, don't worry, you've got autism and ADHD, you don't need to do it. Instead of asking why I was struggling, they focused solely on controlling my behaviour. I moved schools a couple of times because they didn't know what to do with me. I wasn't supported through transitions. I was just dumped in a new school. each time the same message was reinforced for me. Wherever I went, I would never quite fit in. My mum fought constantly. She spent years trying to prove that I wasn't lying, exaggerating, being dramatic, that I genuinely couldn't cope. My dad never believed my diagnosis. He believed I was a bad kid who just needed more punishment. That disbelief hurt me far more than I can ever explain. Even as a child, I had a small sense of recognition that something wasn't my fault. I didn't understand the labels, but I knew I wasn't choosing this. So to be disbelieved by someone that was meant to love and protect me, that stayed with me, and it did irreparable damage to my relationship with my dad. I couldn't even tell you where he is now. I couldn't tell you if he was dead or alive, nothing, because I have nothing to do with him, and I haven't since a child. I feel that relationship shaped how I trust men. It shaped how I feel in relationships. It taught me early on that being honest about my experience was dangerous, and that led to me hiding my diagnoses for a long time. I would apply for jobs and I would make a point of not checking the disability boxes because I didn't want to be judged for something I couldn't control. As I got older, things didn't get easier, they just got quieter. I was held onto by the psychologist at CAMS until I was 19. Now, obviously, that's pretty unusual in itself. CAMS is a children's service, and I believe back then you transitioned onto adult services when you were like 16 to 18. So either way, I was over the age that I should have been with her. I wasn't kept with her because I was thriving. It's because cases like mine weren't common. I was a little bit of a rarity. They were almost unheard of, and she didn't know how I'd function in the world. There weren't adult services to catch me as I moved through that. I was part of university studies because I was an anomaly. I wasn't a success story, but I didn't feel like something they could close out either. From the outside, this looked like support, but from inside it felt like uncertainty. I wasn't being prepared for the real world. I was just being watched. As a child, the minute I got my diagnosis, I was pretty much put on medication. Now, as an adult, I can't say that I agree with the decision made by my parents, but I accept it. They were the ones that had to deal with me all day, every day, and I know that can't have been easy. I was first put on Ritalin because at the time that was all that existed. I didn't choose it, I didn't understand it, and I wasn't involved in the decision. Eventually, they moved me over to Concerta XL. Again, I didn't choose it. I didn't understand it. I wasn't involved in the decision process. It was just something that happened to me. Nobody explained to me why I was taking it. Nobody taught me how to notice how it made me feel. I learned in that situation compliance, not self-awareness. What harmed me wasn't the medication itself, but it was the complete absence of agency. If I had a day where I didn't want to take my tablets, I was punished for not taking them. I wasn't given a choice. It was take your tablets or you're not going to gymnastics. It was take your tablets or you're not having pudding after dinner, which, again, like I say, I do understand why my mum did it because she needed as much help as she could get. But for me, it just made medication feel like punishment, and that has now followed me into adulthood and created trauma around medication. By adolescence, I didn't look like a crisis anymore. I wasn't as loud. I wasn't as explosive. I'd learnt to survive quietly. And when a child survives quietly, it often gets mistaken for progress. Inside, I wasn't okay. I was contained. I learned how to monitor myself, to minimize my reactions, to be easy. But that wasn't healing. That was just survival. And Often it resulted in massive meltdowns, violent outbursts at home. So although to the wider world it seemed like I was recovering or getting better, growing out of it, that was never really gonna happen. By the time I made it to adulthood and I was moving out, I wasn't excited, I was tired. I didn't move into adulthood with confidence. I stepped into it with badly curated coping mechanisms. Hyper-awareness, people-pleasing, self-monitoring. I had no idea how to rest. I only knew how to endure. I had never paid a bill in my life. I had never made a financial decision. I had never done anything that regular teenagers moving to adulthood would do. I had multiple jobs because I could never stick at one. And I never really understood why, because even moving into my adulthood, when ADHD and autism was becoming more wide known and there was more information available about it, I still didn't understand what I'd been diagnosed with. Still, at this point, no one had explained to me what it was. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I really looked into what my conditions are that I started to understand myself. For a long time, I thought my personality was the problem. I was just too much. I was too sensitive. I was too intense. Now I understand that wasn't a personality. That was an adaptation. It was who I became to survive. I became observant because I had to be. I became careful because connections were conditional. I became acceptable because stability wasn't guaranteed. I didn't become this way because I was difficult. I became this way because I was trying to survive. Early diagnosis wasn't useless, but it wasn't enough. I had a name for what I lived with, but that didn't translate into who I was. It didn't teach adults how to support me emotionally. It didn't teach me how to understand myself. Early diagnosis only helps when it is followed by understanding. And in the 90s, the understanding wasn't there. The language wasn't there. There was just nothing. There was just, here's your labels, here's some pills, go on your merry way, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. If you were diagnosed early and still struggle, you didn't fail. The system just wasn't ready. And if you're only unpacking this now, you're not late. You're doing it when it's finally safe to do so. This video wasn't about rewriting the past. It was about telling the truth without shame. And if you feel this video helped you feel seen or helped you recognize it in yourself, share it with care, because sometimes being seen for the first time changes everything. My name's Katie May, and I really appreciate you sitting with me through this. I will be uploading part 2 in the next couple of days, which follows more of my transition into adulthood and what my life looks like now and what I'm doing with myself, because believe it or not, I'm pretty successful and I'm doing pretty well, and I've got a pretty incredible family, and I can't wait to share all of that with you guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you don't find me funny, come back. Come here, come here. You must know. Come here, come here. Come here. Come closer. Come closer. Don't put that down. Come closer. Come closer. Look that way. Look that way. Look that way. Look at the camera. It's his birthday. Happy birthday.